Welcome back to the AI Executive Morning Buzz. I'm Albert, and again, here joined by Jason and Nick. We're so excited about this week's topics. And actually, we're going to do things a little bit different just so you have something to look forward to as we lead into the week. As you know, we're here every morning for the Morning Buzz, 7:30 a.m. Central, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So here's what we're going to be looking at this week. We'll be analyzing significant AI developments that executives need to track. And today, we'll be focusing on some breaking news and some key updates that you're going to want to follow. So follow along. And tomorrow, what we'll be doing is talking about implementation strategies. And then Thursday, so that you know what to look forward to, we'll talk about organizational readiness. There's been a ton of buzz about that. So, what I'd love to do today with the gents, let's start off with Meta's, one of my favorites, latest major announcement. Meta has released, if you didn't see it, they've actually released Llama 4, their new multimodal AI system. So I'd love to bounce it over to Jason. Let's jump right in it. What's significant about this new Meta release?
So Meta released three new models. They released two of them already, and one of them they plan to release in the near future. So they have Maverick and Scout as their two smaller models. So Scout is going to be equivalent to the GPT 4.0 Mini, and then Maverick's probably a little bit more for the GPT 4.0. And then Behemoth, which is supposed to be the smartest AI model, they have not released that, so we'll see
Right.
what the stats are. But there's some really transformational things that are happening here. I think the most impactful is it now has a 10 million token context window. So to
Wow.
give you an idea of what you can do with 10 million tokens, you can videotape yourself for 20 hours straight and upload it to that model and be able to get an output. So think about utilizing your Meta Ray Bans, and you're just recording everything that you do all day long, and then you're able to upload that and give you a summary of all the interactions, all the things that you did, how you can improve with interactions. Like, I think this is going to really change how people think about utilizing AI going forward.
I love it. That's amazing and really excited about that. It's especially, that reminds me of a tool called Plod AI. Now, it's nothing like this, right? But I'm talking about your 24-hour transcription tool and now your ability to use vision and meta. I knew they were flying under the radar. This is huge. Nick, on the strategic side, because there's a lot of money being invested here, thoughts on how this is impacting the entire market as a whole?
65 billion to be exact.
Wow.
Um, I keep going back to the race to the bottom, and I don't mean bottom
Mm-hmm.
negatively. I mean
Mm-hmm.
bottom as in in the name and in keeping with the democratization of the best and brightest models. And unfortunately, for profit closed source model providers are really being challenged right now. If you have Meta and Chinese companies like DeepSeek
Mm-hmm.
putting out models that outperform GPT-4, now verdict's still out on these new Scout and Maverick models. There are some testing going on. If you have these open source model providers putting these models out on commercial licenses for free to use, and now even including the blueprints, right, or the open weights, right, on
Yeah, go
how
replicate.
the system is designed to make decisions, now improving and gaining access to auditability, traceability, explainability, and these are all core components of responsible AI. How are closed source model providers like OpenAI and Anthropic supposed to keep up, right? Now, I think ease of access, the user interface, user experience is a big part of it. But
Right.
with a lot more people now exploring uh, are unlocking their ability to start to code with what's called pair programming, or more casually called vibe coding.
Vibe coding.
Yeah, it's become even easier to start to integrate these open source models that are out there. So strategically, I think the FOSS, right, free and open source, that initiative is going to continue to grow in every enterprise. But I think underneath it all, security needs to be a part of every conversation, making sure that these things
Right.
are being tested, they're being benchmarked. and they're making sure that there are no vulnerabilities before these models go into production.
Let me ask you guys
There's a
this. Oh,
few
go
things
ahead,
I'd like
Jason.
to add on off of Nick's comments. Was
Yeah.
first one is I think Llama has now just proven that they're going to be where most enterprises are looking. That people that are
Yeah.
worried about security, do not trust the cloud, do not trust the Gen AI providers. They're going to be building this in their data centers and utilizing, and you can do with Scout with very limited GPU stack. You don't need a gigantic servers to be able to do that. So I think that is one phase that I think this is going to really help businesses because now you're getting state of the art models that you can host inside your data
Your
centers
server.
and get
Yeah.
the same value that you see all over the internet.
Okay,
It
so
The
this
doesn't
is
other
cost you.
thing,
huge.
Doesn't
Yeah.
cost you. And with a 10 million token window, like context window, I
Exactly.
now there's something. Okay, so for my nerds out there, we've all known what RAG is, retrieval
right?
augmented
Like this is a
generation.
rag killer.
There's a RAG kill. I think RAG will still be around, but it depends on where the retrieval, where it's being retrieved from. Now it's called
Hmm.
CAG. It's cache augmented generation because cache meaning like it's local. The information exists within the current memory, like the context window.
Hmm.
Because the context window is so big, we don't need to have sort of database storage to service requests. We can maintain active memory because the memory is so large now. It just remembers a whole lot more.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
The
it's
other
funny.
thing is
Oh,
the
go ahead, Jason.
benchmarks, and there's a lot of drama going on yesterday with Llama's benchmarking that
Yeah.
they used a different model to pass the benchmark. So there's a benchmark called the LL Marina, where you interact with two models and you define which one you like better. And Llama's off the charts. But what they did is they like overemphasized how it's communicating of, oh my God, that is an amazing question. Emoji, emoji, emoji. Let me tell you a little bit more about that emoji, emoji, emoji. And so, like,
It's like stop.
they've kind of gamed the system a little bit. So now
Yeah.
I'm starting to question of, are these model providers going to start gaming these benchmarks so that the benchmarks are completely irrelevant going forward?
And as much as I don't like these, like certified organic plays, there almost needs to be like how there are centralized bodies that control IP addresses globally,
Hmm.
that control the top level like .com domains, the .net domains, right? There almost needs to be a global nonprofit that is really responsible, like ANSI or what's the one that
That's
does the domains? I forgot.
dude. Yeah, that's. Oh, I remember Skynet.
It's kind of no, no, no. We
That
need
was
we
a
need a.
nonprofit.
It's almost like we need some sort of a certification, like a centralized group of people who are not incentivized by the incentives that the model produces for the manufacturer. Rather, they're incentivized through centralized funding, right?
Mm.
In keeping with being honest and truthful about the benchmarks.
I think the
Mm.
hardest part about that, Nick, is going to be keeping up with the pace of innovation. You know,
Mm.
Sure.
if you're talking governance, and a lot of governance leads with really slowing innovation down. How can you balance that? And I think that's where the United States is like, we're just going to let you build whatever you want, and
Yeah.
do that.
Well, I'm not saying it needs to be a contingency, but it's going to be a great resources for enterprises to say that, hey,
Hmm.
as a part of our system development lifecycle or secure development lifecycle, whatever you want to call it, that this is a certification that, like, it's another way of verifying. It's not to say that governments should use it as a tool to dampen innovation, but rather enterprises can use it as a tool for verification of models before they're allowed to go to production.
Now this is good. I want to echo what you both are saying, right? So the enterprise back last year and the beginning of this year, somewhat even recently, afraid to dabble in this because of security issues. Can we get it within our own server? Do we have to use the open source LLMs out there like Chat and some others? Now there's a solution here, right? And you get far more speed and accuracy, precision, so it's good. I'm curious about what your thoughts are. And I know we want to go to the next topic here, but so Meta, you all know I'm a fan here. I think they've been flying under the radar when it comes to the immersive experience, right? VR. So what does this do strategically? Jace, thoughts, Nick, thoughts on this? On okay, now their AI game is picking up, and then how does this coincide with their VR platform? I have a one of those quests, right? And I
Yeah.
love it, but I'm curious how this improves the experience.
So that's kind of where they're really focusing on their Instagram, their Facebook, and as well as their VR, and it's not as good as coding. There's been a lot of outrage that they've said that these models are going to provide better coding, and
Mm-hmm.
no one's really seeing it compared to like Claude and Gemini 2.5 Pro. So they are leaning towards their ecosystem and utilizing these tools to improve their ecosystem and how people interact with it. Um, and it's going to allow for the ability to probably start. I think where I think they're going is being able to build your own VR game with your own context that's specialized directly to you, where you don't have to depend on a different game in a different setting.
Love it.
Edge computing is something I always talk about, right? So being able to bring the power of a model closer to the human user has always been a goal, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's always been a constraint because the compute resources necessary or required far outweigh the space a human has in their personal life to have locally. But with these models becoming more and more efficient, there are technologies like quantization that help enable it. We're able to deliver the power of these models at the edge. So imagine having, and Jason and I were on the phone with NVIDIA yesterday talking about edge computing use cases and bringing AI, embedding AI, these models right into cameras for
Right.
municipalities, right?
Wow.
This is possible, right? We can achieve those compute efficiencies, the cost efficiency, and the power, frankly, efficiencies right at the edge, and making these VR experiences completely uninterrupted, highly low latent. You're not waiting for frames to load. All the compute's being done locally.
I don't think people realize that, right? I think they still think that's so futuristic, but the ability, not only the speed, but the power, the vision, like all the memory, all the voice, all the variables are there to completely close the loop, not AGI yet, but soon close the loop to what people think is, 10 years, 20 years, or a movie setting down the road. It is
No,
here already.
Oh,
you
and that
know,
was one of the things I forgot to talk about why this one's groundbreaking. It is multimodal by default. So you can use voice, text, video, audio, any type of way to communicate to provide your input to get your output. So
Yeah,
that is something that, no other model has, released that all in one model.
getting closer and closer to Tony Stark's Jarvis.
that's
That's my
right.
goal. Okay.
I go towards the Minority Report movie. I'm just like, man, I went back and watched it again. I'm like, it's all here. I think the thing that is coming next, kind of what to your point, both of your points, the marketing play. Like, I'm so curious how the marketing industry is going to start using this. But your ability to have vision, right? And if you remember, it was the eyeballs, and maybe we don't go that extreme, but maybe it's the facial recognition. They see you walking down, and an ad on a window, it's your hyper personalized within seconds of walking, as your
Yep.
window, what do you call it, window dressing, or what, you're peeping in as you're looking at product, and that's right around the corner if not already developed in here. So, okay, switching gears. So we had a couple of podcast guests, Stefan Bermer and then Jason Wells, both global leaders. So I love that we're getting a lot of guests on our podcast. For those that haven't been following, they're dishing out and being distributed about every week. You can find it on Spotify, YouTube, our LinkedIn. And so I love that we're not only talking about domestic things, but global things. So one of the topics that, for those that missed it, the UN, this was a good and some, I guess, concerning news, but the good news is they're finding, and based on their studies, they're seeing a 4.8, almost $5 trillion future when it comes to AI. However, and as we've been chatting about on our show, that gap. There's a widening AI digital divide. There's a gap here, and so it may have some economic implications. So, Nick, I want to start with you. What are your thoughts on the global economic implications that this may have as the UN is pressing here?
Oh, I think it's. I'll take a balanced approach to it. So, um, 40% of research and development is really situated within 100 companies
Hmm.
globally, right?
Right.
And those companies are largely located in the United States and in China. Um,
It's the race.
but going back to earlier points about how healthy and vibrant the open source community is, um, I don't think it takes more than a decent computer and a decent internet connection to gain access.
Hmm.
They're not putting it behind a paywall, right? So money's not a factor. So if you have a decent computer, a decent internet connection, these things are yours for the taking. You can go to GitHub and download them for free. Now, I know that before you can do something like that, you got to know what you're doing. So education, I think really it comes down to how to get educated. But with the amount of free training out there, that once again is just a decent laptop and a decent internet connection away, especially with the amount of channels on YouTube, like the AI Executive, that are
That's
putting
right.
out free content, right? There are numerous agent courses out there that are free. I think that sometimes it just takes a little bit of work, right? So I think that if it's a nation state concern uh,
Mm.
from a sort of uh, a gross domestic product, issue on how productive is my country, I think countries like Singapore are a great example of how governments are getting involved in AI literacy and spreading AI literacy amongst their community. If you're over 40, is that right, Jason?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
in
Over 40.
Singapore, you automatically qualify for a retooling and reskilling program. So I think that the problem exists, but I don't think it's hard to solve for. That's my
I
take.
think, and I'll get to Jace here in a sec. I'm interested, Jason, on what your thoughts on, or what your thoughts are on just the policy portion. How important? I don't know if people talk about that enough. I mean, maybe Europe does, and they're all about like policy regulation. But I'm talking about how do we get out in front, not just the digital divide, but this labor impact. We've talked about it in a couple Morning Buzz shows. People are really wanting to understand. I think there's a little bit of angst and some fear on what is this shock going to look like, right? There's a lot of stuff on the news right now with tariffs and things like that, and cost of living inflation, right? But what's really getting mastered, and I love using our platform to talk about it because people are really enjoying it, is this labor shock. And now we're talking globally, and I really do think policy is a big piece. But I know as you were, um, we were chatting about this in previous conversations. There's definitely a kind of a formula you were chatting about, Jason. Can you highlight that for us?
Yeah, well, so there's a few things there. So the first one is, $4.8 trillion.
Yeah.
Sometimes that doesn't really resonate. That's the GDP of Germany,
Wow.
is what they're anticipating the AI is going to consume. But I think, I'd like to go a little bit different from where Nick is. Of yes, the developed countries, it's very easy, because you do have easy access to laptops, you have easy access to internet. But what about some of these non-developed countries?
Hmm.
The northern African countries. I was talking to a guy. He's going out on missionary trips, and they know nothing about technology. Like he has to go all the way back to the internet being created because they don't even understand those types of things.
Right.
I think they can jump the shark on a few things and skip a few type of technology innovations to be able to level set themselves up. But I think there is becoming a divide of those that have and those that have not.
Yeah.
And I think AI has the ability to give you the skills to be able to do that. But you do have to have what Nick said is you need to have, a computer and you need to have internet and you can upskill yourself. But that's
Hmm.
not available in all countries across the world. And I think that's what the UN was really identifying in their article is, we've got to be able to start figuring out how to solve this globally if we're going to not just focus on the two central countries.
Yeah. love them or hate them, we need some Skylink. Throw it up there, get it up there. So this is interesting because it does raise questions for those executives that are multinational, right? Whether your business is or you're traveling around and you're starting, as Jason pointed out, you start to observe just some of this widening of gap, not just the digital divide, but you're right, the haves and have-nots and the infrastructure play, right? The data, the ability to have data or clean data, the upskilling piece for the labor market. It's just so interesting. So as you're running your organizations and you're, you know, not just domestic but global,
Offshoring and all that.
yeah, same, yeah, right, offshoring. Like you need to understand the implications, the benefits, and some of the tension points that you'll have when you're leaning into introducing, integrating AI. And you really want to pay attention to, Jason, I love that you brought that up, is the potential creation of inequality. But then to your point, AI can also be used to close that gap of inequality, right? So it's just something to think about. Your investment dollars, it's much bigger than just the workflows, productivity gains, right? Efficiency. You got to think about, especially as a global leader, you got to think about these implications that can be favorable and unfavorable too. Any other thoughts, lasting thoughts there, gents?
No, I think let's get into the last topic. I think that will
Okay,
feed
so
into where
yeah,
the number two.
we're really big at White Glove AI and on the AI Executive Morning Buzz and podcast about education. So this is huge. So Wharton, a favorite of mine, just launched, and hopefully y'all didn't miss this one. Just launched the new AI for Business MBA program, and it's not only your MBA program from a uh, and undergrad major, but also undergraduate concentration, or if you're looking to do that on your undergraduate degree and then go into the MBA program. So I thought that was really cool. We've brought up Samantha, who's behind the scenes, who's doing a lot of stuff on the marketing in AI, and now we're starting to see these MBA programs. Like, hey, we got to bring this in because it's we've done what was it, Nick? The business from scratch that is coming up. Like it's starting to integrate, and I'm excited to see Wharton taking the lead here. But what are your thoughts, like Nick? How does this announcement, and there's more to come, right, in the education space like this, we've been seeing it. How does this impact the business world and how they're taking on AI now? I mean, it's here, right? There's no more waiting or sitting on the bench. It is now we're jumping in, and we're starting to see the business schools catch on as well, getting people prepared for this environment.
A lot of what's happening right now, and frankly, the Wharton thing is not, it's not too big of a surprise. I went through
Right.
a Wharton program early last year, or late 23. So this isn't news to me. But I think that more and more schools are coming out with AI programs now. I I This is my personal opinion, and not that of my employer, even though I am my own employer. Um, I don't think higher education is composed in a manner to keep up with the
Mm-hmm.
changes.
Mm-hmm.
That became very true during the IT era and the security era. For example, I don't have a degree, right? I survived on the job training. I survived on upskilling through frequent interactions with the technologies I worked with. I I have I at one point I think I had 13 certifications. I mean,
Wow.
that's how I made it, right?
Yeah.
And I think that the old sort of path to through adulthood, I would say, right, of starting off as, as a child going to school, then going to college, then getting a job, then savings, and then going into retirement is just, I think that's an antiquated path.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the new paths where your your skills are really important now, right? What skills you have as a person, where both your hard skills and your soft skills become ever present. Um, I think it's really important to understand that there are different ways, right? And this is a really great. Samantha's going to bring up a quick
Oh, I love this.
screenshot I saw on LinkedIn. I believe Greg Eisenberg, the CEO of Late Checkout, he
Hmm.
posted his thoughts on this. I think there is a
Mm.
new path, and this new path is not all that new. Some of us who didn't want to go to school discovered this early on, right? But the skills plus your assets plus your audience,
Mm.
that's the new path to success,
Value.
right? There are, and I'm sorry to the parents who you've been telling your kids you have to go to college. I'm sorry about that. But I hope we help you adjust your worldview on what it means to be successful or become successful and the path to success. Your children have innate ability that they were born with, things that they're really just naturally good at and better at than others. And this new model at the bottom of the screenshot really helps your child discover what they were put in this world to do.
Yeah.
One thing to look up is the ikigai.
Mm.
It's a philosophy, or
Hmm.
it's a Japanese philosophy. It just really reinforces this new path.
Yeah. That reminds me of, if no one's seen it, the documentary Jiro Dreams of Sushi. Right now, they don't use the term, and they should have, ikigai, but it's pretty much what it's purpose driven, right? It's community driven. It's your health driven. So I love that. And it's not about, college will be different. Continuing education will be different.
It'll be
So I think
different.
those that promote, education, it's just going to be different, right? I mean, the reality is, more than likely you won't have to go into class in the future. I mean, we already saw that happen already. It's happening. And it's just going to be different. I think we saw, right around pre 2020 and then post, right? Coursera and some others just
Yep.
really blow
Redefining.
up. Yeah,
Yeah.
just redefined everything. And it's funny,
Emma.
it lost a little steam. But I think that's where it's going. To your point, it's like, okay, I need to be good at. It reminds me of the Matrix, right? She wants to fly a helicopter, she calls it in, it uploads it in. But that's what it's going to be. Is you don't need to have this broad brush. It's like, I need this specific skill. To your point, Nick, like a certification, right? I need a specific skill. This is what I'm going to go do, and I'm only going to go
I'm gonna go
inch wide,
download it. Yeah.
mile deep. Download it. I'm going to learn it, or maybe my agent's going to learn it, and that is going to be how we do things now and in the future. It no longer has to be this massive textbook. We're going to get through the whole thing. We're going to go down this syllabus
Memorized.
and
Yeah.
memorize. And I'm like, I'm just crunching it on, except for those that are like, have those photographic memories. Like I had friends like that. Like, dude, you've read it once and you're acing the tests and all that. But yeah, it's interesting. Jason, thoughts on this piece on the education front? I know we've had a lot of
I
conversation.
think there's a lot there. I think the one thing I would like to highlight to all the executives is, Wharton has a great program, and
Mhm.
Ethan Mullick is one of the lead professors in AI there. Has a book called Co-Intelligence that is a
Oh
must
yeah,
read for
yeah,
every executive. His
yeah.
Substack, his LinkedIn post, definitely want to follow him. He's always on the current
I need to
leading edge
follow him.
and really giving a thoughtful response of how to think about dealing with and integrating AI into your organizations.
Man, you guys got to share your secrets. I'm not even following them. This is the first time I've seen this. This is pretty cool. I need to start following them. That's good. All right, so I know we're over time and we hit that one a little shy. Maybe that's something that we circle back on tomorrow, but this was great, right? We talked about not only the UN and some of their concerns, also the almost $5 trillion market, but also some major announcements from Meta, and then we'll kick back on the education. And actually, tomorrow, for those that are wondering and listening in, will join us tomorrow morning. We'll be talking about implementation strategies, so more practical items that we'll give you all as you're using AI across different industries. And so we're really excited about that. But as we always say, stay curious, stay innovative. Nick, Jason, thank you so much for the technical and strategic recommendations and insights that you provide. Samantha, behind the scenes, thank you. And everybody, we will see you tomorrow morning, 7:30 a.m. Central. Thanks so much.